All right, joining us right now is Grant Paulsen. You can listen to him every day at 2 o'clock right here on 106.7 The Fan. And Grant, I saw you tweet and I retweeted it as I was promoting your appearance that in 2 of the last 3 games, they have, or maybe it's not 3 games, but in 2 games this season, they have scored 7 points or less, and that only happened once under Scott Turner. Is that correct?
It actually never happened under Scott Turner.
Never happened under Scott Turner. And yet, Bieniemy, I'm telling you, nobody is firing the bullets at Eric Bieniemy in terms of the fans.
I am.
Yeah, I think the honeymoon period's still going for a lot of people.
It's crazy.
I got a lot of heat for that, and by heat I just mean angry people on Twitter after a loss. So what is that worth? But they were like, what's your point? What are you trying to say? And I was like, I'm trying to say that they scored 7 or fewer points twice, and that hasn't happened since 2019. I'm not making the case that Scott Turner's a better offensive coordinator. We all agreed he wasn't good enough. What I am saying is it's hard to only score 7 points in a game in this league.
Yep.
The rules are designed for points and offense. And over a 5-week span, on multiple occasions, they have scored 7 or fewer, which if you go back through the annals here, I mean, twice in 1 year, like most years that doesn't happen once. There's been one season, and it was the Bill Callahan run fest after Jay got fired, where it happened 3 times. But otherwise, there's like 3 years where they've ever scored in a single game 7 or fewer points once over 10 seasons. It's happened 2 times in 5 weeks.
And Grant, you could argue they would have scored possibly 0 points if Sterling Shepard didn't fumble the punt. They just gift wrap it to him deep in Giants territory. But that's neither here nor there. So you tweeted yesterday at Grant H. Paulsen, throw a wide receiver screen or a slant to Terry McLaurin immediately. He's catchless. That is unacceptable. He was a ghost in the first half. He wasn't involved. Yeah, to me, like, that's your best offensive player. He has to be heavily involved from the first series of the game, and to wait 30 minutes to get him in the mix, I mean, it's not fireable, but it's certainly a demerit for Eric Bieniemy for that to happen.
Yeah, it's malpractice, and here's why. People say, well, you need time. Sam Howell has no time. He's under pressure. He's getting crushed on every drop back. Well, there's 2 points there. The first is it takes no time to throw a wide receiver a football or to get him the football. You can jet sweep him a handoff. You can do something they've never done in the history of this organization that every other team seems to have in their playbook, which is a pop pass, right, where you bring him in motion right in front of the guy and he just kind of pushes the ball to him on the fly. You could get him the ball that way. That takes 0.1 second. You could throw him, as I said, a screen or a slant or a stop route, and you don't even need a 3-step drop at that point. They elected to do none of those things. Last week, they were hell-bent on getting him the football early, and they started much faster. On the first, 5th, and 8th play of that game, he got the football. So I just, on top of that, Deonte Banks, the kid from Maryland, who has struggled immensely this year if you watch the Giants, he said something before the game about not knowing who anybody was or who Terry McLaurin was or whatever. He's jawing him after every play in his ear hole. Like, as a coordinator to me, that's my guy, and I'm seeing that, and I know he can cook this dude. I'm just going to involve him. Even if it wasn't part of the plan early in the game, now I see that he's in a talking match after every single play, and he's a dog. Well, he's going to want to make a play and do something. He's going to do something good for me. So if inevitably they gave him a couple of those fades to the outside. He caught passes consecutively for like 31 and 28 yards or whatever, and the offense started moving a little bit. But we've seen it too often this season, I think, where their best football players just aren't involved for too many stretches. And then real quick, the other point on, well, you can't throw the football to Terry McLaurin if there's too much pressure. The pressure yesterday was a scheme problem, I thought. Like, they got out-coached. Wink Martindale ate their lunch. He would send 6. He would send a dog and a blitz and all this other stuff. And they had the same number of guys blocking and couldn't figure it out. So that also is another reason why I would say yesterday was a real plan problem going into the game offensively.
And if I was a defensive coordinator of anybody who the Commanders are playing the rest of the year, I'm doing the same freaking thing because I don't think they can correct it. I really don't. Not for 60 minutes.
Definitely. And here's what I don't know, even after rewatching the game last night, and someone smarter than me over there is going to have to get to the bottom of this. It feels to me, guys, like when I watched the game yesterday, we've talked all year, how many sacks are on the quarterback versus the O-line. And my perception in real time yesterday, and still as I sit here this morning, is that it was more of a protection problem than a Howell problem. Like, he didn't hold the ball. His time to throw was not bad, but what I wonder is a few of those sacks, I can think of a couple of them right now. They had a blitz off the right edge, untouched. They had a delayed linebacker blitz for the 6th blitz early in the second half, where they brought either more than we're blocking on a couple of occasions or the same number if you count the running back that stays in. But where, like, Sam Howell may have pre-snap or during the play or whatever, have to know where the blitz is coming from and shift something and didn't. And that's what I don't know is you've got this young quarterback. Is he acknowledging before the play, like, what's happening and where it's coming from? Because on those plays where you get hit by a free rusher off the edge, like that, your responsibility sometimes is that rusher and making sure that the ball's out before he gets there, even if he comes free and something's got to be hot where you're communicating with a receiver to replace where he blitzed from. So that's the one part I don't know. But I did think just generally, even though Howell played poorly, 50+%, barely completion percentage yesterday, missed a bunch of throws, I thought that was more a protection sack fest in the first half than a Sam Howell problem.
Yeah, I mean, if you just think about it, the NFL record, Grant, for sacks by a quarterback or sacks allowed is 76 with David Carr back in the day.
Yeah.
Hal, if he stays upright, and I'm kind of shocked he hasn't missed any time based on all the hits he's taken so far through 7 games, but he's going to shatter that record. Shatter it.
I think he's on pace for 98.
Yeah, and you just have to ask yourself, okay, how are you going to correct it when you're starting to play?
Well, think
now
about
you're going
it.
to start playing really good teams like the Eagles. You know, the Dolphins are still on the schedule. The Niners, the Cowboys twice. I mean,
They did help out in the second half. The second half, they did some different things. And what was he sacked? Once?
Yeah.
In the second half? They did do better.
Yeah, he was getting rid of the ball a little
But
quicker.
why
He was
didn't
rolling
they
out.
do that in the first half?
That's a great question.
It just took way too long.
It's a great question.
You're right. I
And
mean,
you got to know it going in.
and you're seeing it, right? Their beginning of the game, if you're watching this thing as a coordinator on the sideline, like you got your first 15, you got your plan, and you get punched in the mouth. So now what? They went 3-and-out punt, 3-and-out punt, 4-and-out punt, 3-and-out punt, interception on the 4th play of a drive, 3-and-out punt, 3-and-out punt, 3-and-out punt, halftime.
That's hard to do.
It's so bad, right? So my point is to what you said, EB, like, okay, how many of those drives before you said what we thought was going to work is not, let's try something else? And my big issue is, and I counted this last night when I rewatched the game, they moved the pocket in any capacity. This is a bootleg. They actually are really good when they do what I call like a sprint out, where they just get him moving and then all the receivers go in that direction and they like cut off half the field. They did that once in the first half, late in the second quarter. They, as far as like quick game, where it's just like ball in hand, sling it to the outside, you saw none of that in the first quarter. Their first running back screen, which they've done really well this season. They had a game against the Broncos where they had more yards on design screens to running backs than anybody's had in the league since 2013 when Nick Foles had that many yards. So Bieniemy's done this very well. They can time it up. Their first screen against a team that was blitzing every down, it felt like, was in the third quarter. Like, I don't understand why they didn't kind of try something else until they got to halftime. You can make adjustments on the fly.
By the way, Magic Johnson tweeted, I know you've seen it, Grant. It's hard
What
to
did he
win
say?
in the NFL when you only score 7 points.
That tweet made me laugh so hard.
He's
when
king
I
of
saw
analytics,
that.
Magic Johnson.
Yeah.
I love it.
King of the obvious.
Is that a big? To me, that sounds like a shot at Eric Bieniemy, or is that just an overall shot at Ron
Just at
and
the
the
performance.
ineptitude of the team in general?
Yeah, you know what? I kind of now, like, when he tweeted a few weeks ago after that Bills game, I was like, oh, ooh.
Right.
Now he's like a guy that just tweets what he's watching.
Yeah.
He does it he'll watch the Rangers-Astros game, and he'll be like, big home run in the 9th. So I don't think there's a lot to that, if that makes any sense.
Hey,
Yeah.
Grant, I know that you've had
Makes all
battles
the
like
sense.
with Chris Russell about the importance of running the football, but
Yeah.
I did some math. If you add up the attempts plus the sacks plus Howell runs, it equals 317.
Yep.
And then carries, whether it's their running backs or, Curtis Samuel's had a couple, it's 120. There's no balance. And their best offensive performance was a game against the Eagles where there actually was some balance.
Yeah, that's true. I would imagine, though, that the reason there's balance is because, they actually, in that game, we're playing either even, right, or behind. I mean, in some of these games, like I heard Tiki Barber reference yesterday that Eric Bieniemy threw it 55 straight times against the Bears with no acknowledgement that they did around 90 when the game started, right? So I think some of it is situational. Like whenever I look at run-pass balance,
Sure,
first thing I
some.
do.
But it's not like yesterday that they were so far behind that they couldn't run the football. I know they weren't running effectively, but
Yeah, but they ran it on 7 of their first 18 plays yesterday, right? So I don't know how. Like, do you want it 50-50? I don't.
I happen to agree with you.
Yeah,
I don't know, like maybe 1 or 2 spots you could have picked it, but the game just kind of got away from itself, and at that point you have to pass.
And I get your point, JP.
it's just
like,
a
if
way
you're
to
looking
protect
at it,
Howell. Howell has a tendency
Agreed.
to hold on to the ball too long.
I
okay?
agree with you.
The
But you got to
offensive
run
line
it for
stinks.
yards.
The offensive line stinks. So, it's kind of nitpicking, but when you have 2nd and 4, you don't have to pass.
So I agree on it. That is actually when I'd run it on 2nd and medium. But the problem is, if they ran it on 1st down, they were never in 2nd and 4 yesterday because they couldn't get 6 yards, right?
That's false.
Brian Robinson averaged less than 3 yards per carry. Chris Rodriguez with like 2 for 17 on the last drive.
Well, they had a 2nd and 4 after a pass. I think they did.
Exactly, and that is most of the time this year, honestly, where Bieniemy has run it. To his credit, he's 1st and 10 thrower, 2nd and medium passer, which makes sense. But yesterday, they actually, I'd have to go back, but anecdotally, it felt like they ran it a lot more on 1st and 10 unsuccessfully. So the worst that you can do for your quarterbacks be in 2nd and 9, 2nd and 10, and they were a bunch yesterday.
Hey, Grant, kind of flipping the script before we let you go. If I was a Ranger fan, I would not feel good about Max Scherzer going tonight on the road in a must-win. I would not feel good about that in
Same.
Houston.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I'd give him 2 innings. If he's struggling after 2, just call him to the pen.
I was thinking about this because he came back so much earlier than he was supposed to from this injury, just based on kind of deciding he was going too early on.
Right.
And when you do that, like in so many ways, your reputation's at stake, right? Because this gets added to the pile, whether people don't remember the context of like, you came back and gutted it out for your team. So he got kicked around last start. If he has a brutal outing and gets shelled early, I mean, that all gets thrown into the he's overrated in the playoffs kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I'm with you. It doesn't look good on paper, but this is kind of one of those games. Remember, in the World Series, which played out the exact same way as this so far, where the road team won all 6 of the games.
Right.
Houston, 2 losses at home, 3 wins on the road, now lost Game 6 at home. Then the Nats would go on to win Game 7. Max was on the hill in that game, and when they went back to Houston, and he was banged up, and he threw 5 2-run innings and gutted it out. So he's done almost this exact same thing before.
Yeah.
It's weird. History's repeating itself.
He's just a different pitcher.
Hey, Grant,
than he
real
was then.
quick, I want to put you on the line here.
Yeah.
If you had to bet right now, the Commanders' final record, and will Sam Howell be the starting quarterback next season?
Ooh, the second one's tough. I'll say 7-10.
Yeah.
And I'll say no, because I think they're going to have a new GM and a new head coach, which normally means a new quarterback. But I believe that based on how he's played so far, I am interested enough to have him be their quarterback. But that's a different question.
Yep.
Kind of depends on what the options are.
I'm with
but
you on that. I'm with you on that.
All
All
right.
right. Thank you, Grant. Appreciate it, buddy.
Thank you, guys.
Yep. It is a week-to-week league. Things can change.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of think that's where we're at with Sam Howell and with the team. Although I don't know if they're going to get to 7 now.
7 seems like
I
a
look at
tough
that
hill to
schedule and go,
climb.
where are you getting 4 more?
It's
Based
tough.
on how they're playing.
I don't know.